And now and then.
There was more to the Beatles than just Paul McCartney and John Lennon. In spite of this, some people enjoy disputing that some group members weren't essential to its success. Even some of the Beatles visited that place. Paul's remarks on the subject nearly seem to contradict those of John. Paul's words from a brochure distributed at his performances are cited in a 1989 Los Angeles Times article. He remarked, "I find myself trying to justify myself against John, which is terrible, but it's just because of the unfortunate circumstances. Someone out there is beginning to believe he was the Beatles." Nobody else was present, the booklet went on. George was simply waiting for a solo while holding a plectrum. That isn't accurate anymore. More than just wait for a solo. The first person to tell you that would be John. A terrible tragedy, so you can't blame people for feeling that way. That he and his bandmates weren't getting enough credit, as evidenced by his desire for his audience to read these remarks. Paul clarified his remarks in the booklet. "It's just really awkward because of what happened to John," he remarked. "It would be impolite to attempt to defend the actions of the other band members when John is our deceased friend. Of course, there are instances when you read about the Beatles when John was the leader and the other three men were just sort of there. That the public did not hold a high regard for him, despite the fact that he was one of the world's most famous people. Great tunes like Something, Here Comes the Sun, and While My Guitar." An interview from 1980 can be found in the book All We Are Saying, the last major interview with John Lennon and Yoko Ono. According to a reporter, John and Paul were considered the Beatles' songwriters. John went so far as to say that George and Ringo were eventually unnecessary for the group. Singer of Imagine only thought that he and Paul could have formed a group that was on par with two other musicians. Contributions to the organization were undervalued, while John thought the opposite. Whatever the Beatles' opinions about their group dynamics, they were an unstoppable force when they were all together.